my name is Bjorn. Thank you for joining me today. We are going to be looking at my homebrew subclass for the fighter called the Shield Master. I created this because I felt that there was a void, because there's nothing that really focuses primarily on the shield within this game, especially because there's so many other fantasy type classes throughout many different genres that really emphasize the use of the shield. I felt like there was a missing utility to this, and since we're in a fantasy or even a high fantasy setting, why not do some interesting things with that? As well, though, this will allow you to use 2 shields effectively instead of just 1 if you would so choose. However, I balance it out so it's not so broken and so overpowered, and we'll get into all that discussion here. At the very end of the video, I will be going over this character build here, going over feats and what I felt would be best for the, a typical shield master in this case. And yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it. So as we can see here, I am in the D&D Beyond. I understand with homebrewing things, you need to be able to subscribe to D&D Beyond. I am not sponsored by D&D Beyond. I understand that if you can't afford to subscribe. Yeah, so I'll just put this link in the description below. You'll still be able to see this and read it and pull it off onto your own game sheet if needed. I really like D&D Beyond. I personally feel it is worth $2 a month for it, but that's my own personal bias on it. So as we see here, I've described what this class is and my loves for the idea behind it. We have some spell casting here. I based this off of the Eldritch Knight. There's only a few things that we keep from the Eldritch Knight. One is the spell casting, and 2 is the weapon bomb feature, which I've altered. So everything is essentially the same with the spell casting, except for 2 things. We are going to be using our charisma modifier instead of our intelligence modifier for our spellcasting abilities. As well, we will be using the bardic spell list, so we will be gaining a few different spells. We'll be losing some spells. For example, we lose out on shield because that comes from the wizard spell list, but with us going with bard, we'll be gaining healing word and cure wounds. So we'll be gaining some things, losing some others. So as we can see here, these are all the spell slots that we get at 3rd level, which is when we do get spellcasting. We only have 2. And then so on and so forth. This is exactly the same as the Eldritch Knight. I really liked, it felt appropriate that this character didn't have too many spell slots. We're not so focused on spells with this character. I want to be more focused on the raw strength of your character and using magic to enhance your abilities to do certain abilities here. So besides just the spell casting at 3rd level, we also gain a few other things here at 3rd level, starting with our shield binding. This is exactly the weapon bond feature, except we don't bond weapons to us, we bind shields to us. So we can bind up to 2 shields to us. I decided to keep the 2 shields in there because later down the line, as you'll be able to see here, we gain an ability called Shield Bash and Shield Hurl, in which we will be able to deal damage with the shield. And I realized that there's a niche playstyle. Why wouldn't I want to use 2 shields? That seems really cool. So I figured that would be a very fun thing to have, and I figured keeping both of the shields that you choose to have binded to you would be very useful in that case. Or if you ever just want to have 2 additional, like you can carry one on you, one on your back, and you have 2 shields at all times. So besides that, we also gain a few other abilities through Live by the Shield. We gain Shield Bash, Shield Hurl, and Never Fall. Never Fall is probably the most powerful out of these, but we'll start with Shield Bash. So starting at 3rd level, you can use our shield to bash your target as a part of your attack action, adding your proficiency plus strength modifier to hit for a 1d6 damage die. This damage will increase to a 1d8 at 7th and a 1d10 at 15th level, adding your strength modifier to the damage roll. Consider this bludgeoning damage unless you create a unique shield to change that damage type. Now, the reason why I've kept this damage so low is because, well, I had to balance it out because at lower levels, you're supposed to be kind of weak. You're supposed to be kind of pathetic. You're supposed to not have, you're not god killing level right now, right? And this more so benefits us in the fact that if we want to go sword and board, that we are able to have now a bludgeoning damage equipment tool at our hand, and as well, if we have a longsword, now we have slashing damage. So if we run into something that is vulnerable to bludgeoning damage, say skeleton, we can just straight up use the bludgeoning damage. Why wouldn't we? We're trying to make use of the equipment that we have, because I felt like that's a part of the warrior. That's part of something that I felt warriors would be doing in this. You make use of the tools at hand. So this just allows us to have multiple different damage dealing, and allows us to progressively get better. And if I increase the damage die, so like this is a short sword damage here, I felt that was appropriate for 3rd level. And then coming up to 7th level, which is only 4 levels away, this is a longsword damage here. So at 7th level, your longsword and your shield are now doing like equal damage. And then by 15th level, your 1d10, you're going to be doing more damage with your shield. I felt like this was an appropriate scaling. I had a very hard time deciding this. I went through many different iterations. As well, we gained the shield hurl ability, so through our own strength, magical skill, or some combination of both. With each of our shield that is bound to us through our shield binding feature, we can use the attack action to throw one with ease for 30 feet normal and 40 feet disadvantage. Either we retrieve the shield on our own, or we use our shield binding feature to return it to us as a bonus action. This follows the same damage and 2 hit rolls as the shield bash abilities, so it's the exact same damage, the exact same everything. I wanted to give this a decent range, but not an insane range. I felt like this was appropriate. 30 feet is quite a bit for throwing a shield, but I really wanted this to be in here because I want to start us to get into that Avengers shield kind of feel with this, and get into that Captain America feel, and like we're going to progressively get better with this through our ricochet ability later on, which I will go into detail then. We also gained the Never Fall ability. This is primarily why I had to balance out these to be a bit lower of damage to start, because this, we can now, as a reaction before being hit, add our strength modifier to our AC total. This will last until the start of our next turn. You will be able to do this a number of times equal to your strength modifier, minimum of 1, and will reset on a short rest. So this is essentially the shield spell, except we get to do this a number of times equal to our strength modifier. So this is already very, very powerful as compared to the Eldritch Knight, because the Eldritch Knight would have only been able to use the shield spell as a number of times equal to their spell slots that they have, and at this level it's not many, but with this you could potentially have 5 shield effects going up, except you're not reflecting magic missiles, but this is just going to increase your total AC. So this is a very, very powerful ability that we can only get better with strength. As well, I made a personal note down here that if I built this around being a strength build. I'm fine with that because there's other fighter builds that, like, say, the Arcane Archer, they focus on dexterity and intelligence. If you really want to use this as a dexterity build, you can. That's up to you. I didn't build this like it would just automatically choose the highest default number, but personally, it makes more sense to me that this is a strength build because we're bracing for that impact, say, with Never Fall, and we're putting our strength and our might into it, and that makes a lot more sense to me than dexterity. Like dexterity, there's the defensive duelist feat, for example. That makes sense, where you're dexterous, you're able to deflect the blows and all that jazz. This personally makes sense that we are a strength build. Coming down to 7th level, we gain Inlaid Magic. We've learned to twist magical force damage into when we use our attack action to attack with a bonded shield, bash or hurl attack. We may expend a spell slot of at least 1st level to add extra damage through our charisma modifier. Should we expend a spell slot above 1st level, add your charisma modifier again, and the example of this is a spell slot of 1st level, we add a charisma modifier times 1. So for example, if we have a charisma of 20, that's a +5 modifier. We get to add 5 damage from a 1st level spell slot. From a 2nd level spell slot is charisma modifier times 2, that is a 10 damage. Charisma modifier times 3, that's 15. This damage will not apply as well to any ricochet hits beyond the first target hit. As well, this acts as a divine strike type ability. You may use it after you know it hits or criticals. So I wanted to keep that in there so that you're not wasting this, because you do have very few spell slots. This will be improved later, as we can see right here with the improved Inlaid Magic. We'll get to that though. It's a nice progression. I wanted to keep this somewhat powerful and somewhat relevant, but I didn't want it to overpower, say, the smite ability from paladins, because that's their thing, that's their shtick. And I felt like having a set amount of damage as opposed to just a d8, pretty nice. As well, we don't actually, for now, we cannot multiply this damage on a critical hit, right? Because it's a modifier. We don't double that damage. This is simply something that we get to add in. It's a nice little cushioning of damage. By the time we hit 7th level, I believe we'll have 4 1st level spell slots, and we'll have 2 2nd level spell slots. So that's a pretty nice amount of spell slots that we're going to be able to use immediately once we get this ability at 7th level. As well, at 7th level, we get to increase our damage die of our shield bash to a d8. So we're keeping up with damage with our shields, and we're as well gaining some more damaging abilities. I felt like this was a very balanced point for 7th level. Coming down to 10th level, we gain Die by the Shield. So starting at 10th, when we score a critical hit, we may make another attack with one of our bonded shields as a bonus action. Should this bonus action hit the same opponent as the critical hit, it will have disadvantage on attack rolls until the start of our next turn. Or should it critically hit again, your opponent will instead be stunned until the start of your next turn. So this is a pretty nice RNG thing. I felt like I wanted critical hits to be important for this character. I wanted this character to have that feeling that you're using this advantage of like this critical hit, this brutal damage you just did to somebody, and then you come in for you slam the shield into them, and it disorientates them a little bit, and it gives them disadvantage. But if you manage to critically hit, then critically hit again, I felt like that would be really cool on its own. And I figured, fuck it, you know what? That's so rare and so like improbable that fuck it, stun them. Like, I wanted this to be awesome. I wanted you to feel awesome for getting that double critical, not just because you got a double critical, but because now that opponent is stunned. And I felt that this was pretty balanced because monks by 5th level, they can just stun lock somebody. 15th level, we gain the ability called Ricochet, so we are able to ricochet our shield from our ranged attacks to either bounce off our main target or a solid object, and to hit up to 2 additional targets within 10 feet of the previously hit target. Targets must make a dexterity saving throw against your spell save DC, or on a save, take no damage, and on a fail, take force damage equal to a d4 plus your charisma modifier, after which the shield will return to an open hand. You have a number of uses equal to your charisma modifier times 2, and regain uses of this on a long rest. Now, this is a fairly powerful ability, but it's not as powerful as I feel it could be, so I felt that this was fairly balanced, but I could be wrong. This could be abused, but I'm trying to think of ways that it could be, and I would like to gain knowledge and insight onto that. So essentially, I need to clarify this. 10 feet within the previously hit target. I worded that specifically so that because we have a limited range here, right? So we can throw it normally within 30 feet and 40 feet disadvantage. But with this, 10 feet previously, so if we throw our shield and it hits our target from 30 feet away, we are then able to ricochet that shield to 10 feet further than that and hit a target 10 feet beyond that, so 40 feet. And then if we hit that target, we can go ahead and ricochet it beyond even that and go another 10 feet, which would be 50 feet. So this I felt like extended out the range of our ability, as well giving us nice additional damage that we otherwise wouldn't have had. So, you know, for mobbing, for AoE, this works out fairly nicely. This is essentially the Avenger's Shield ability. I think it's really cool. For the uses here, I felt this was appropriate. A charisma modifier times 2 and regaining on a long rest. You know, a charisma modifier plus 5, that's 10 uses a day. That's a fair amount of uses. I was considering making this on a short rest. I'm still a little bit conflicted on that because I felt like a short rest would be really, really powerful, and I felt like a long rest is a bit more better because, you know, like we want to use this appropriately. Because, I mean, we are doing a d4 plus our charisma modifier. That's essentially a rogue's dagger right there, right? Like, that's pretty big. That's a lot of damage that we're dealing. We can roll 9 damage right there. And again, it's force damage. You know, I'm involving that magical side, that magical feel of it. This isn't the bludgeoning damage that we'd be doing. Like the first hit that we deal. So like the first hit we would shield hurl, and then we would hit, and then we'd roll. Say we're at 15th level because we have to be with the ricochet. We roll a d10 and add our strength modifier, and then that's bludgeoning damage. We can add an inlaid magic feature into this, and then we can crank, I believe, a 3rd level spell slot. We can do so like 10 plus 5, so for our roll 15, and then we can add this. That'd be a 30 damage right there from our inlaid magic, and then we can ricochet that hit to hit 2 further targets, and we can deal 9 damage to 2 further targets. Like, we can do a decent amount of damage, but I didn't want this character to be focused solely on raw damage output and raw damage potential. Like this just allows us to just, I feel like, keep up with some AoE and deal some extra shit, and it's just fucking cool. And then finally coming down here to our 18th and final thing, we gain the improved inlaid magic. So whenever we critically hit and use a bonded shield and the inlaid magic feature, we may double whatever the modifier added from the spell was. As well, we do not burn a spell slot from what you used. You may do this a number of times equal to your charisma modifier and regain uses on a short rest. Essentially, I put this in here because at 18th level, you know, we only have one 4th level spell slot. I wanted there to be more uses of that big fucking hit, right? I wanted people to be able to feel good, get that huge damage off and just be able to, like, because all of a sudden, again, here's the modifiers and how it would be. We would do charisma modifier 5 times 4, that's 20 times 2, so 40 damage with this ability. That's pretty decent. Still, again, not as powerful as perhaps Divine Smite, which is fine, but I also didn't want to keep it as powerful as Divine Smite, because if people are multi-classing into this, like, there's going to be things to abuse, and I had to keep that in mind. This was, I felt appropriate for a final level. I may increase damage, I may increase usage. We do get this back on a short rest, which I felt was appropriate as well, because between fights we could short rest and then we gain back all those uses, and then say we could go through a day without ever burning through our 4th level spell slot, because if we short rest even once, that's 10 uses of this, so there's a lot of potential of this. Like, you just have to be smart with it, really. So yeah, that was a bit more in depth. I think I may have missed a few things, but we're gonna go ahead and get into a character build here, and what I feel is appropriate for this type of character. We'll start off with the race here. I've decided to go with the Zorel Tiefling. This is going to give us a charisma +2 and a strength +1, so pretty nice. I like to focus on getting the strength and charisma of this character up as high as possible. Of course, there's plenty of different races that you could go with, plenty of different things. I mean, you can play anything with this, and you don't need to play exactly 2 type, right? As for the abilities, I would recommend getting that charisma up as high as possible and that strength as high as possible. Charisma primarily I felt is a bit better for this character, because we gain so many more uses, so many more benefits from our charisma, I felt, over our strength. Our strength, of course, though, we're going to gain that never fall ability, so they're both extraordinarily useful. Constitution, because we are probably tanking. I mean, this character is a sword and board. It makes sense. Now, as for the leveling, fighting style, I would recommend going with protection. You're just fitting into that role of the tank. You don't need to go with protection, obviously. We could just go with dueling or defense. They're both very useful fighting styles for this character. This will just give us another reaction to impose disadvantage on people around us, so I felt this was appropriate for, obviously, being a shield master. It fits in, it allows us to emphasize our abilities of that. Obviously, gain second wind, action surge, very useful stuff. Proficiencies, obviously, because we're a high charisma and high strength build, I have one with intimidation and athletics there. Of course, we already know about the spellcasting, the shield binding, the live by the shield. The 4th level, the first feat, I felt appropriate would be the Shield Master. So when we take the attack action on our turn, you can use a bonus action to shove a creature within 5 feet of your shield. I'm going to point out that this doesn't apply damage. Don't do that. That's abusing the system. This is just shoving the creature. This isn't attacking. This is action to shove as a bonus action. It says right there, it doesn't say we're dealing damage. The main reason why you'd want to take this so is to add your AC to your dexterity saving throws, and then it effectively acts as an evasion ability, so very, very useful. We gain extra attack 5th level. 6th level, I would recommend going with Heavy Armor Master. This is going to reduce damage you take by 3 per hit. Very, very useful. After 10 hits, that's 30 damage you didn't take. Layton Magic, 8th level ASI. Athlete's a pretty good one, because we're a pretty immobile class with this. That's part of one of the weaknesses I wanted to make with this character, is that we have a limited range of utility that we can get around with. That meaning that I wanted this character to have some sort of weakness. So if a dungeon master is really looking to fuck with this person, keep kiting this person. Play a warlock and keep pushing them back, push them out of range. Play something that can slow their movement down, and then that's where the team play, working together with your party members. This is where you're gonna need help from your other group members to get you to that target or deal with that target for you, because it's a group play thing, right? Being indomitable at 9th level, die by the shield, extra attack, another ASI, mobile again, because we have very little mobility with this character. Makes sense. And again, I would recommend getting your constitution as high as possible. That's what I did for that ASI there. Another constitution increase. And then for final ASI, I've decided to go with tough because I was maxed out. So more health and more everything. This is fantastic. So, closing thoughts on this is that I hope people enjoy this character. I hope that this fills that void that was missing. I hope that this is balanced. I have noticed that with other classes and other subclasses, it's interesting how they are created, because everything's kind of a little overpowered. Everything's kind of a little underpowered at the same time. So I tried to keep that in mind with making this character and trying to make them both overpowered and underpowered. I just really wanted to focus on that utility of the shield and all these cool things that we could be doing. I also managed to add in the shield bash and the hurl shield here to go off of your strength and everything, so that's going to show up there. And yeah, for equipment, just get that plate, get that shield. Again, you could go double shield here. That could be a really cool play style. Like there's some niche fantasy things like that. I have to say though, with double shields, make sure you're not doubling your AC. I didn't change that. You do not double the AC from your shield. You only gain the AC benefit from one shield. I would have originally used 2 shields to start with. There just wasn't a character that could deal damage with those shields. Now you can, but we don't add our AC from the second shield that we gain. We only add it from the one shield, because if you did this, all of a sudden you go from a fucking like a base of 26 AC, which is already insanely high, to like a base of like 32 or something like that. And then on top of that, you have never fall, so your AC would get it to like 37, which is ridiculous and broken and not right. Keep that in mind if you play with double shields. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've liked it. I'll post a link to the thing in the description below, or comment. And yeah, thank you so very much for watching. If you've enjoyed it, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, what you felt about it. I would love to get some feedback on it. Maybe if you feel like this is overpowered, underpowered, undertuned, whatever. I would love to hear and work on this together. Thank you so very much again, and have a great one.